The Gathering Church was born as a traditional American church. About the year 2000, we began with great teaching, preaching, ministries, the full traditional American church. And we were thriving for many, many years. But a few years back, we ran into a season of crisis. That crisis drove us to our knees in prayer. And that is the place where we learned to truly know the Lord, and relationship began. We fell in love with the presence of Jesus in that place of prayer. And He so graciously walked us through that season of crisis. But we knew when we came out of that season that we had to continue praying, that we could never go back to praying out of convenience, that we didn't any longer want to wait until there was a crisis to pray, that we wanted to become people of prayer and people of the presence of God. So we continued to pray, and I began to search the prayer movement of what God was doing across the globe in and through prayer in His people. And I realized that we were in a very specific time in history as I began to study the Word of God and prayer and what was going on, that we were the fulfillment of the words of the prophet Amos in chapter 9, verse 11, that this was the time in history right now that God is restoring the tabernacle of David across the earth, rebuilding it as in the days of old. David's tabernacle essentially was the presence of God brought into the tent, to a physical tent where He invited the people to come and be near the presence of God, and the singers and musicians would gather around the presence of God to worship there in that place. David's tabernacle is essentially the prayer room on the earth that was very similar to the prayer room in heaven that we see in Revelation 4 and 5. They were the connection of heaven and earth in that place. And this was the time in history that the prophet Amos said this kind of prayer and worship would be restored across the earth. So we began to pray in that style of prayer and worship around the presence of God. We have become a people who long for His presence above anything else, that we desire His kingdom to come to the earth, not ours anymore. We desire His desires above our desires. And we have been transformed by His presence. And now our first priority is to minister to the heart of God, to worship Him, because He is worthy.